Place your phone on a wireless charger and wait. It is slower than a cable, it gets warm, and sometimes it stops charging halfway through the night and you do not know why. Most people assumed that was just how wireless charging worked. It is not. The slowness was not a technology problem. It was a geometry problem. Wireless charging runs on induction. A coil inside the charger generates a magnetic field, and a coil inside your phone catches that field and converts it into electricity. No contact required. But here is the part that matters. Both coils have to line up. Not roughly, not close enough, precisely. When the coils are perfectly aligned, energy transfers efficiently. Most of what leaves the charger arrives in the battery. When they are off, even by a few millimeters, the field weakens. Energy scatters. The charger works harder. Heat builds. Charging slows down. And the problem is, you cannot see any of this happening. You place your phone, the light comes on, and it looks like it is charging. But depending on exactly where the phone landed, you might be getting full power, or you might be losing a significant portion of it to heat. The obvious fix is simple. Make the coils bigger. A larger coil is harder to miss. But a bigger coil also means more heat, more energy waste, and a thicker, heavier device. So for years, the industry lived with the trade-off. Wireless charging was convenience. It was just never as efficient as it could have been. Then Apple shipped MagSafe, and everything changed. Not because of a new charging technology, but because of a ring of magnets. MagSafe put a circular array of magnets around the charging coil. The phone has a matching ring. When you place the phone near the charger, the magnets pull it into the correct position automatically. Not approximately, exactly. Every time. The coils align, the field is clean. The energy transfer is efficient. That is why MagSafe charged faster than standard Qi. Not because it used more power, but because it stopped wasting the power it already had. In 2023, the Wireless Power Consortium adopted this approach as Qi2, the new universal standard for wireless charging. Apple contributed the magnetic alignment design directly to the standard, which means the same system that started as an Apple product is now built into Android devices, third-party accessories, and products that have nothing to do with Apple. So, Qi2 is not a faster wireless charger. It is a more accurate one. The energy was always there. The coils were always capable. The problem was that nobody could guarantee where the phone would land. The magnet solved that, not by adding power, but by removing the uncertainty. That is what a standard looks like when it gets the geometry right. It does not give you more energy. It stops losing the energy you already had. If you want more small things with big reasons, subscribe.